because let's talk about Trudeau's Canada, where you can say nothing. Professionals in Justin Trudeau's Canada do not have the right to say what they want. If Jordan Peterson is any example. Now, probably you know who Jordan Peterson is, but if you don't, he's a psychologist in Canada who's made a name for himself by saying things online. A lot of things that have turned out to be true, but he says them in a kind of in-your-face way. I'm going to say I like him a whole lot. He's kind of wild. And because in this world where I'm used to people walking on eggshells, usually when he says something, I'm like, whoa, you said that. And then I just kind of watch like this, like, okay, yeah, say that, because we're not supposed to say that. For instance, this controversial tweet that he said in 2022 that he was at his daughter's wedding in California, and he blamed Justin Trudeau's travel ban, saying that his travel ban is the reason that my father, the grandfather of the bride, was not here. And he was pissed about it. He was disciplined for this, for saying that, like, I feel this personally. This travel ban has kept my father from traveling to an important family event. And I blame you, politician Justin Trudeau. Here's another thing he said when this Sports Illustrated plus size model came out. He says, sorry, I don't think that this is beautiful. Now, obviously, that feels hurtful to people who have plus size bodies. But what he feels is that we are being asked to accept increasingly unhealthy body perceptions, and he refuses to. So yeah, does that feel a little jarring as a woman? Sure. But do I have the right to say, no, you find that beautiful, you must be sexually attracted to that? No, right? And so these are things that we are increasingly not allowed to say. And he does more than just rabble rousing. For example, he did a lengthy interview on the Birth Gap documentary that I found eye-opening. He's wild like that. I like it. He was very early to warn about the dangers of gender ideology in the biopharmaceutical complex. And now the College of Psychologists of Ontario says that because of this online behavior, he has to go through behavior modification. It harkens to these sort of post-apocalyptic movies where you're reprogramming someone's brain for wrongthink. They're calling it specified continued education or remedial program, or SCERP. That's what we're going to call it. Go ahead, Philip.
I was just going to say, are they calling it behavior modification? Is that the words they use, or did they use their SCERP?
They're calling it SCERP. So specifically, specified continued education or remedial program. So they want to remediate. So what do you think when, we need to change that, make it better, or make you apologize? What are those words mean to you? Remediate. And they want to do this specifically regarding his public statements. We covered this 6 months ago when this directive came out, and he fought it. He appealed it. And this judgment was just handed out late last week by the Superior Court of Justice. This means that a court has decided that a psychologist can be subjected to reprogramming for saying controversial things, or else risk losing his license. It doesn't really matter that much to Jordan Peterson. He doesn't necessarily need to keep this license active. He hasn't seen patients since 2017. He has a big media brand that he can use to earn a living for the foreseeable future. But it matters because if he can't say these things, think of all the people who are not Jordan Peterson who are being silenced in much smaller ways.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why it matters. That's why he's fighting this. It's because of the closing window of freedom. He responded to this in a video with his daughter. Here's what he says he's going to do since he's lost his appeal.
I am required to undergo the retraining. I will undergo the retraining. And I will tape it. And I will broadcast it. And then everyone else can decide for themselves just exactly what the hell's going on, and whether or not I've contemplated my words, whether or not I've thought through everything I say carefully, whether or not I have any grounds for my opinions. I don't say things that I haven't thought about.
All right. So I'm here for that. That is something I think I will watch, because I would love to know how the college thinks it should, reprogram someone and make them say they're sorry for things that maybe they hurt their feelings. They're going to have to ask, and I'm going to show you later how they decide whether or not, he's been successful at this. I don't know if they're going to allow it to be taped. But he's saying, okay, let's do this publicly. What's weird about this is the way that it's being coerced. They're saying it's not disciplinary, but he's being forced to do it. Watch.
Like the millions of people that I'm communicating with, let's say, are prone to complain, but that the college itself decided that that was sufficient grounds to threaten my license and to force me into re-education. Of course, they're not doing it for disciplinary reasons. It's like, what the? I don't even understand what that means. If you're not doing it for disciplinary reasons, it's like, why is it forced? And why am I being upbraided? That's like the definition of disciplinary.
Upbraided.
So that just shows you how mendacious the decision is.
I love that word, upbraided. Why am I being upbraided? It's a great point. If it's not about disciplinary actions, then what is it for? Because he's being, he's being.
You could lose your license if you don't do it.
Right, and your hand is being slapped.
Yeah,
and you're having to go through this now year-long remediation.
Not only that,
what else is it?
He has to pay for it at his own cost, and they don't know what that is. So look at this directive saying that he has to enter a coaching program with either one or two individuals. To review, reflect, and or ameliorate his professionalism in public statements. It's to begin within 3 months and to be completed within 12. Costs associated with the coaching are to be borne by him. And unless that coach provides this final report indicating that concerns have been appropriately remediated in the public interest, then Dr. Peterson will not be considered to have successfully complied with SCERP, which may constitute professional. So he has to get a grade. Can you imagine, who's going to come in and discipline Jordan Peterson? Because, like I said, he's so wild, and you're going to say, yes, you feel sorry for that. Here's how this hurt people's feelings. You shouldn't say it. Do you agree? And he's going to be like, no, I don't. And I think that this is why freedom of speech is important. So it's impossible to tame this, right? And here are some of the things that they listed, like tweets. Now, some of them are still rather controversial, and I feel like I should not read them out loud, so I'm just going to put them on the screen. They talk about his appearance on Joe Rogan. They talk about referring to this person as a prick. We still can say that. They talk about him referring to Catherine McKinney, an Ottawa city councillor, as an appalling, self-righteous, moralizing thing. They talk about the Ellen Page tweet. I'm not going to talk about that because we have at length. They talked about the Sports Illustrated saying that wasn't beautiful. And then one person was talking about overpopulation. And he addresses this. He says he really doesn't like it when people talk about overpopulation as in the world's too, which, again, it doesn't accurately depict our declining birth rate. And also he feels like that is sort of a racist thing to say, is other people should should not be able to reproduce, but me, I should be able to say this on Twitter because I'm an upwardly mobile person, right? And so what he said, you can get off if you want. And the college said, oh, you're counseling to self-harm, which is obviously, it was sarcasm, right? Because he doesn't mean you should step off the planet or hurt yourself. They're taking it very literal. And so the right to sarcasm doesn't even exist. And again,
they've lost all sense of humor. You can't say anything. And if you think this is just happening in Canada, it's not. I mean, it's happening. It's happening across Europe with the Digital Services Act, which is now enforceable. And so Canadians, I mean, it's going to be happening in the United States. It's already happening in people being deplatformed and taken off of these social media platforms. So this is not just about Canada.
Right. And how do you tell a man, oh no, that Sports Illustrated is beautiful. You say it's beautiful now. How do you remediate if he says, I'm sorry, I don't think that this is a beautiful body image, and say, yes, you do. And so you need to go around and apologize to people who
It's ridiculous.
think that you don't think
here's
that's
the Sports
beautiful.
Illustrated cover. Here's this, here's this woman on the front of it. You must think that this is attractive. Sorry, no, I don't. And you're not gonna force me to do that?
Right. Are they ever going to? I mean, the only way I can think is like they're going to have to Theon Greyjoy into like, your name is Reek. Like, like this kind of extreme. There's no other way to really make it. I hope that doesn't. I'm not saying I want that to happen.
Well, and also just think, this is level 1, right? So is the following levels going to end up like a Clockwork Orange, where they're going to have people sitting in chairs with toothpicks holding their eyes open?
Yeah, keeping their eyes open to watch this stuff. You must.
Yeah,
you must see.
You must believe this.
You must see this transgender sports star who's naked now on the front cover of this magazine, and we're celebrating the fact that this person had a double mastectomy. You must think that that's attractive. There's a coffee company in Europe called Costa. I think it's called Costa, and their new advertising campaign is it's a caricature of a woman with a mastectomy. Like, we're supposed to accept that as some sort of a beautiful thing. And what if I tweet about that and say, I find this incredibly offensive? You're promoting like child mutilation, basically. You're promoting mutilating your body to get a cup of coffee. Would I be wound up in this court in Canada and be forced to go through a remediation training because I don't like that?
Yeah. Now, in this video, Peterson says that he could just go get a license somewhere else in Canada outside of Ontario. I guess that's how that works. But that's not the point. The point is he's fighting for the people who can't fight it. Because if they can do it to him, they can do it in many small measures. And presumably they are doing it to a lot of psychologists who may question gender ideology, who may say we shouldn't put kids on these medicines and surgeries, who may say we shouldn't take rights away from parents, and those psychologists become deplatformed or risk losing their license. So for every person who gets deplatformed for wrongthink and can't fight it, there is at least Jordan Peterson fighting at the top for the precedence. So for that, I applaud it. You may not think this applies to you because you're not a psychologist and you don't live in Canada, but if you live in a Western country, we are increasingly discouraged from saying what we think. For instance, here's something that happened over the weekend. There was a woman in Britain who got a visit from the police for saying that she likes Redux. Now, that's a media organization that I do follow them and I read. They cover crimes committed by trans-identified men on women. And it's a very serious media organization. And it's usually, it takes a strong stomach to read what they talk about. Now, here's the tweet. She just said everyone should be following and donating to Redux. And she got a police warning about it. Now, here's the statement from Redux about it. It said that she's under criminal investigation for calling attention to the behavior of Stephanie Hayden, who's a trans-identified male, who was accused of using the courts to silence critics of gender ideology. So she posted about it, and she got a visit from the Surrey police saying that her bail conditions, because she had previous violations, criminal violations, explicitly mentioned that her bail conditions forbid her from publishing things like this. So that's confusing. Like, she can't say that she is against gender ideology as part of her bail conditions.
What?
Right? And so they say, we are concerned about further attacks on her liberty and freedom of speech and disturbed by what seems to be a punishment by proxy. And we are going to monitor this and her visit from the police from what should be her freedom of expression, whether or not she has priors. So these are the kind of authoritarian things that do seem to be coming down the pipeline for all of us. And it is for all of us to say, no, for me, okay, I don't particularly like the Jordan Peterson tweet saying that that's not beautiful about a woman who's curvy or like that. Like, I think there are other ways to say that. But I absolutely want to defend his right to say that because I want to live in a place where you protect the speech even speech you don't like.
Right. Like I'm not somebody who would ever think to take time out of my day to jump online and to make a comment about someone's weight like that. It just wouldn't occur to me to do that. but I have the right to, right?
Right.
And you might
Sure.
not like it. I'm not going to do it, but you might not like it. But that's the speech that we're defending.
Because I think it's more dangerous to not be able to say that
Right.
than
I agree.
it is to say that.
But if you think this is
Well,
dangerous, I mean, go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to say, and another problem is a lot of people, if you support somebody's free speech, like you say, hey, I support Jordan's right to say that, then all of a sudden they put you in a box of supporting what he said. And that's a huge difference. Like, just because you support somebody's right to say something does not mean you support what they say. And people
Right.
need to make that distinction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you think it's bad in Canada, I mean, which is really, really bad. I was talking to a friend in Canada last night. He said, we don't know what's being kept from us now in Canada. Like, what information is being hidden from us that we just can't even access, which is, can you imagine that? Like, living in a society where you don't even know what's being kept from you. But just think about it in
Yes,
Europe.
I can, because I survived the pandemic.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, now you'll know in certainly inside Europe with the Digital Services Act, which is now enforceable by the European Commission as of last week, they will now be able to reach out directly to social media companies and tell them they do not like this particular speech. They do not like this tweet. They do not like this information. They can go to great lengths. They can even take emergency powers during whatever they deem to be an emergency and take over social media. Like, this is now law. This is now enforceable. So it's not just Canada. It's in all of these Western nations. It's becoming increasingly scary, this invasion on freedom of speech. And it starts slowly and incrementally, and it just kind of creeps up on you. And then suddenly,
Well, and that's exactly why it's so scary to like not say anything. Like, I've seen the United States, Kamala Harris started that coalition, to make anything negative towards transgender, anything a hate speech, a hate crime, or whatever. So that's why we have, in my opinion, we have to be loud about that stuff, because when we're not, we're like, oh, it's not going to get bad. It's going to go away. We've noticed that does not work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I just read the Hunger Games prequel, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and it feels like, it's been maybe 10 years since I started the first ones. And I'm like, man, Panem seems kind of familiar.
right.
The Hunger Games world of like not being able to say things actually feels more familiar now than when I started that trilogy. So it's up to us to speak for all speech, even speech we don't like. So we're here for it. We're doing it. We're doing the thing.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.